A new BBC documentary examines the legacy of the Japanese music executive Johnny Kitagawa. He founded a male-only talent agency which has produced many of Japan's biggest boy bands. However, multiple allegations of sexual abuse have been made by boys and men who once worked with Kitagawa and aspired to make it in the Japanese pop market. Mobeen Azar reports.
Japan has the biggest music market in the world after the US. And one company, Johnny & Associates, has dominated the J-pop or Japanese pop market since being established in the 1960s. Its founder, Johnny Kitagawa, has had rumours surrounding him for decades that he sexually abused boys in his male-only talent agency throughout his 50-year career.
Few photos of him are known to exist, so we've drawn a picture of him to show you instead.
Claims of abuse were upheld in a 2003 libel case, but despite this, he continued to work until his death in 2019, and he's still revered in Japan. I spoke to a fan on the streets of Tokyo.
He is God.
He's God?
He is God.
Why is he God? That's quite a big statement.
Some of the abuse happened while boys were staying at Kitagawa's home. I spoke to a victim for the BBC's This World programme who shared his story for the first time.
Johnny told me, go and have a bath. Johnny filled up the bath. I thought, isn't he kind? But then he reached for my trousers. I said, I'll take them off myself. But he replied with silence, and that terrified me. Later, several boys told me, you have to put up with it or you won't succeed.
We tried several times to get answers from Johnny & Associates about the allegations and struggled to speak to anyone. Eventually, I went to their offices and I was met by one of the marketing team.
I believe we already replied to you. Please let any further communications be handled to the person who responded to the lawyer.
I hear what you're saying, but that's not happening. I'm not getting a response at the moment.
They've replied to you already.
They've replied to say that they don't want to respond to the allegations. That's all they've said.
I'm very sorry. Any further conversations to go further?
So I want to speak to someone senior. I want to work out how we can make that happen. To be frank, Kai, I don't think, given the seriousness of the allegations, the fact that this relates to dozens of cases of young men... We were asked to stop filming. The company's CEO, Julie Keiko Fujishima, who's also Kitagawa's niece, later replied and said they are working to establish highly transparent organizational structures, adapting to the times in compliance with laws, regulations, and strengthened governance with impartial experts. In reporting this story, we contacted the police, entertainment reporters, music producers, newspapers, TV networks, and even the public broadcaster, though none of them would speak to us. An iron curtain is drawn when you mention the name Johnny Kitagawa, and so, to this day, he's protected in Japan, even after his death.
Mobeen Azar for BBC News.
And Mobeen is with me now. So Mobeen, tell us a little bit more about how this agency worked, the structures of the agency, if you like.
Johnny & Associates has been going and has been very successful for decades now, in fact. So it was established by a man called Johnny Kitagawa. He had a career spanning 6 decades. And within that time, he made the Guinness Book of Records multiple times. He was linked to producing the highest number of boy bands, various hit singles, producing the highest number of shows. And so the agency works like a boy band factory. And it's not just the success of the acts in terms of pop culture and pop music. These acts will also often go on to get sponsorship deals. So anyone in any of the major cities in Japan will see these boy band figures advertising everything from coffee to contact lenses to real estate. And so the company, and Johnny Kitagawa in particular, really was the architect of what we know as J-pop or Japanese pop culture.
Now, you alluded to it right at the end of your report, but actually none of this has had much coverage in Japan, has it? Tell us more about why not.
It really hasn't, and this was the most surprising element of the story for me, because of course there'll be people watching this who will think there are comparisons here with Weinstein or R. Kelly or any of those historic cases we know about. I think this is distinctly different because actually this case got a little bit of coverage about 20 years ago. And in fact, some of these claims were upheld as part of a libel case 20 years ago. Now, the majority of the Japanese press made a decision not to cover it. There's many reasons for that. I've been told one of the main reasons is Johnny and Associates as a company essentially holds a monopoly. So if you report something and say something bad about any of their acts or individuals like Johnny Kitagawa, it can have repercussions. Those repercussions can include not having access to these boy bands, and that can mean audiences will turn away from your outlet.
And we saw in your report your efforts to actually get some information, to get a response, a right of reply, if you like, from the company. So there was a brief statement issued. Since then, have you had any further communications from them?
I haven't had any communications from the company. What I'm really hoping for and what I'm very optimistic about is this story has been getting traction within Japan over recent days. And I think that will only continue. And so I hope that it does contribute to a national discussion and getting some justice for the survivors.
OK, Mobeen, thank you very much for talking to us about that. Mobeen Azhar. And if you're here in the UK, you can see Mobeen's documentary, Predator, The Secret Scandal of J-Pop. That's at 9 p.m. GMT.